Hi, I'm Marco Rubio, and welcome to this week's edition of our Constituent Mailbox. As you know, every week we reach into the mailbox, whether it's emails or letters, and we pick 2 or 3 that are typical of some of the mail we're getting. Sometimes they're not that typical, but they're an issue that we want to respond to. And so we've done that again this week, and we encourage you to email us or write your letters because you never know, you might get picked next week. So let's get started. Our first email comes from Nicholas from Miami, and Nicholas is a senior at Miami Killian High, and he writes, "I'm writing you about our need for oil independence. It's my opinion that the United States needs to rid itself of dependence on foreign oil. By allowing U.S. companies to drill for oil, it will hopefully give us the independence we need to provide a stronger country, not reliant on foreign oil." It's hard to believe that the president has allowed a foreign oil company to drill for oil right off our shores in the Gulf of Mexico. Please help the U.S. become a world leader once again. Well, Nicholas, first of all, energy independence is a tremendous national priority. It has to be a bigger national priority. Unfortunately, we don't have a national energy policy, which is very frustrating because no issue is more important to our economic growth than that one. It has to be the cornerstone of any reforms we do moving forward. And it is frustrating, you know, that the recent advances in technology have allowed us to not only to discover new energy deposits in the United States, but new ways to use it. For example, natural gas deposits that we never thought we'd be able to reach, we have access to now. The United States is one of the most energy-rich countries in the history of the world, and we have to access that. Now, we have to do it in a way that's fair. We have to do that in a way that's responsible. We can't destroy our natural environment. We obviously don't want to do things that are irresponsible the way China does, for example. They're building coal-fired plants at a rapid pace. They're polluting their environment. Their air is very dirty. We don't want any of that. And the good news is we don't have to do any of that. And we should also develop all kinds of alternative energies and energy efficiency technologies. We should lead the world in alternative energies. We should lead the world in the technologies that make us more fuel efficient. But we should also be a leader in energy production, domestic energy production. It creates jobs, it provides price stability, it's good for our economy. I share your views on this, and I hope that soon we'll be able to put the politics aside and come together as both Republicans and Democrats, and most importantly, as Americans, and establish an energy policy for our country that allows our economy to grow now and in the future. Thank you for your email, Nicholas. Our second email comes from Harry, who's from Lakewood Ranch, and he's not very happy with my trip to Libya. He writes that as a Florida resident, he finds it ironic that the majority of the individuals who traveled to Libya were the same as those who publicly denounced the president's decision not to put boots on the ground in that civil war. And you're now taking credit for what appears to be a successful overthrow of that government and clear evidence that the U.S. role in that conflict was correct. Why do we not hear acknowledgement of the president's correct policy on this matter? The public funds used for this trip are blatantly wasteful when one sees the desperate need for that money to be spent meeting the needs of our citizens. Spending public funds to produce a self-aggrandizement photo op in Libya while neglecting your legislative responsibilities for Florida citizens is shameful. What is your explanation for such egregious priority? Well, Harry, you covered a lot of topics, so let me go one by one and try to address all of them for you. First of all, you said publicly denounced the president's decision not to put boots on the ground. That's actually not accurate. I, in fact, never thought nor ever said that we should put boots on the ground or have American ground troops. The reason is the Libyans didn't want American ground troops. They didn't need American ground troops. The Libyans wanted to provide for their own independence and their own freedom, and they fought bravely to achieve it. The only thing the Libyans ever asked for was access to their frozen funds with a promise to reimburse us for any cost that we would have, and they wanted a no-fly zone, which was something France and NATO committed to. France, England, the United States, and NATO committed to. And so it's not right to say that we criticized his decision not to put boots on the ground. What we did criticize is that we didn't do enough. And in fact, my trip to Libya confirmed that. What I said was that if the United States had done a little bit more on the air campaign a little bit sooner, if we had done the same thing we did, just sooner and a little bit more aggressively, the conflict in Libya would have ended a long time ago. That means thousands of lives would have been saved. That means millions of dollars in destruction could have been avoided. And that means we'd be much further along in the process of bringing that place to transition. Unfortunately, we didn't do that. Muammar Gaddafi got away. He's now on the loose. They're still holding out in 2 cities. They're still killing people. They're still costing NATO money. The second thing is that we're taking credit for what appears to be a successful overthrow of that government and clear evidence that the U.S. role in that conflict was correct. I've outlined why the U.S. role was correct, but not done the right way. We didn't do it fast enough, and we didn't know enough of it. As far as taking credit, nothing could be further from the truth. All the credit for Libya's liberation belongs to the brave people, many of whom I met, that risked life and limb to provide for their own freedom and their own dignity. And I think that's where the credit belongs. Finally, you write, the public funds that were used for the trip are blatantly wasteful. Let me say, Harry, that I'm a member of the Foreign Relations Committee and also a member here of the Congress. We are going to spend money in Libya now and moving forward. And so I think it's important for those of us who have legislative oversight to visit these places and understand how it works. I can assure you that Tripoli right now is not a resort destination. It was not a vacation of any kind. It was an important fact-finding mission, and here's why. We're going to ask to make decisions in the future about whether we're willing to cooperate economically with this regime, with this new government that's in place who's replaced the regime. As an example, is they want access to their frozen funds. And so it's important for us to go there and make sure that the people we're dealing with are responsible parties that don't have anti-American views. I'm happy to report that we think they are responsible. We saw clear evidence of a pro-American population, especially in Tripoli. But that's not something we can get in a book or from a magazine. That's something you have to go and see for yourself, especially as a member of both the Intelligence Committee and the Foreign Relations Committee. And you have to be there in person to do that. There's no other way to really understand these topics. As far as the other thing about producing, the amount of money that it costs to go overseas, let me say this. The one thing I left most impressed with is that the new government in Libya, in addition to moving towards elections, has said that they want to pay us back. They want to reimburse us. They want to reimburse the United States and our allies for the cost of the no-fly zone, for the cost of the NATO campaign, and for any money that we give them now in the interim period. We have billions of dollars of theirs frozen in American bank accounts, not to mention billions of dollars that are frozen and assets that are frozen all over the world. And they have pledged and promised to reimburse us for the cost of that. And I think that's a very positive development, one that we got firsthand, again, not from a book or a magazine article. And that's why it's important for public policymakers to be there. That's why it's important that those of us who serve on committees of jurisdiction, like the Foreign Relations Committee, take these trips and go out and learn firsthand so we can speak with authority as opposed to taking somebody else's word for it. But thank you for your email, Harry, and thanks for reaching out to us. Our last email is from Rob, who's a Boy Scout from Winter Haven, and here's what Rob writes. He says, the reason why I'm writing you is as a Boy Scout merit badge. The requirement is to write a senator about a big national issue, and I choose health care because health care is very important, but some people can't get affordable insurance. Some companies deny treatment that people need to recover from their accidents. Healthcare costs have tripled since the 70s and 80s. Why doesn't someone step up and pass a law to make the costs lower and make the healthcare costs cheaper? Well, Rob, healthcare is a problem in America. Now, our healthcare system, in terms of our doctors, our hospitals, our technologies, is the best in the world. The problem is how to pay for it. So we have a health insurance problem in America. And you're right, we don't have very many options for access to health insurance that's affordable. One of the reasons why is because the consumer really has no choice. Virtually everything else we buy out there, we get to choose. We have multiple options. We control our money. We pick what we want to buy, and people have to compete for our business. Not when it comes to health insurance. Most people get their health insurance from their job. Their employer tells them, this is our company, and you have to pay into that. Imagine a different system where everybody controlled their health care dollars, where I could take my money and you could take my money every month, take a certain amount of money tax-free, and use that to shop for health insurance. Now all these companies would be competing for our business. You talked about not funding people for recovering from their accident. That's a whole separate issue. I will talk about people, however, that have pre-existing conditions, and that is a problem. And that's why I've always believed that one of the things government can do is not overly regulate the healthcare industry, but maybe invest in things called high-risk pools, which are pools of people that are very difficult to insure, almost impossible, because they have an existing condition. And that's something the government can help with. But in terms of providing insurance, we should just let people have more choice as consumers of health insurance on where to put their money and what insurance plan to buy. If we did that, you'd see more competition, higher quality, and more choices. And I hope we'll move towards that instead of this disastrous healthcare law that was passed a couple of years ago that has cost thousands of people their jobs and will cost thousands more their existing coverage, even if they're happy with it. Well, I thank all of you for writing us your emails and your letters, and I encourage you to continue to send them in. I look forward to next week's installment of Constituent Mailbox. Until then, thank you so much for the privilege and the honor of serving you in the United States Senate. May God bless all of you. May God bless our country, and may God bless the state of Florida. Thank you.